Welcome back to Let's Talk Careers. My name is Miss V, and I'm so excited to bring another incredible guest. Today we are zooming around the world and we're meeting Sam Smith, who's the founder and coach of The Changing Room and the founder CEO of Wayland's Yard and Oddkin Coffee Roasters.
Yeah, hi Maria. Thank you so much for having me on here.
Sam, I'm going to take you back to when you were a younger teenager. I know that you were interested in history and politics and economics at A levels, but you went on to study politics and economics, and then you were doing that during your rugby career. I'm always coming across young people that are really interested in pursuing a professional career in sport. How did you manage to study and have a rugby career at the same time? I think that would be the number one question that young people would be wanting to learn more about. How did you balance it?
I started playing rugby at the age of 13. My dad played rugby for England and Wasps, so I did what most sort of kids do and reject what their parents do and think it's really uncool. So I tried every other sport under the sun and was really competitive but really rubbish at all of them. So eventually I gave in when I was 13 and gave rugby a shot, and that led to me getting signed up for the Harlequins Academy at school and playing for England under 16s and under 18s. And that was obviously very quickly overnight became my dream, was to play professional rugby and get a contract out of school. But I think I had quite a lot of support at school and also from my parents, just to keep me, I guess, my feet on the ground a bit and level-headed, and remembering that to continue to study at school and try hard and sort of make the most of my time there, because whether or not I would make it was completely up in the air at that point. So yeah, I enjoyed politics, economics, history. I did that, like you said, at A levels, and I applied to a bunch of universities, kind of hoping, I guess, fingers crossed, that I was going to get a contract, and I was very fortunate to get a contract straight out of school. So I finished my A levels, and about a week later started at Harlequins full time. And yeah, it was the balance piece. Is, I think, in any stage of our lives, we're trying to balance multiple things, and I think depending on what your priorities are, that's what you'll find the time to make happen, I guess.
Another question that I know comes up a lot is how did you manage to get that contract? Young people are always concerned about, if I can, will I, won't I, what can I do? What would you suggest from your own experience of getting that contract very soon for a young person thinking about pursuing their sport as a profession?
It's a good question. I said I had the balance, but I was very one-track minded towards rugby at school. I chose to train and play rather than go to all of the parties at the weekends. I was training after school most nights, whether that was with the academy or at the gym. And yeah, I guess I was very dedicated to it because it was my dream, and I knew how many other people in the country probably had the same dream at the same time, playing the same position as me. So I guess I've always had that mindset of, if I can really apply myself and just really give everything I've got, then that puts me in the best position to make my dream, or whatever it is that I want to happen. And whilst knowing that a lot of things are out of my control, but one thing that is in my control is how hard I can work and sort of sacrifice for, I guess.
What would you say was your go-to whenever you were looking out at your friends and thinking, I mean, what if I don't make it? Is what I'm doing right now going to be worth it? Maybe I'm going to miss out on all these parties. Like, what was that thing that you told yourself as all of your peers were kind of living their best life in secondary school and planning those things that they wanted to do while you were trying to stay focused on your interest in sport?
I think I just had it innately inside me that I would rather fail trying than not try and fail. And this is something that I speak to lots of my coaching clients around, and a lot of people don't start something because of the fear of failure, and whether they admit that to themselves or not, or whether they're making excuses around it, for me, if you don't try, then you're guaranteed to fail. So I'd rather try and then fail, and then at least know I tried. And for me, like I said, it was my dream. So at the time, yes, there were times when I would not be going to a party, and I'd come into school on a Monday and hear all the crazy stuff that had kind of gone on, and be sat there going, oh. But then I guess I had that North Star kind of that was just shining so bright up in the sky that it made those decisions easier.
So as a parent looking at their children who are saying, Mom, Dad, I really want to do this sport professionally. I really want to do it. Parents are concerned that the likelihood of success is a lot less than it would be if they went down that traditional path and just pursued an occupation. Often I hear parents saying, just do the sport as a hobby. You don't need to focus on it as a career. Now, looking through your perspective, because that's really the perspective that you can look through, how did you identify for yourself that made your parents confident that, yes, this is what he wants to do. We really need to be supporting him. I think that might help a student watching this right now be able to identify for themselves how they can help their parents support them on that process.
I was very fortunate to have parents who always said to me, we will back you whatever you want to do. So I was very fortunate to be in that position. But kind of looking at it backwards now, very much the way I look at it is, if there's something that you really need to try, that you're desperate to make work, you can always go back to university or kind of the more sort of regular path at a later date. That whilst when you're 18, 19, 20, it feels like you have to go to university today, because otherwise you're going to be that older person at uni. But from my experience, I've got lots of friends who played rugby for 3-4 years. It didn't quite work out. They then went to university at 22, 23, had an absolutely incredible time, because you're coming to it with a load of experience. And I guess what I'd say is, trying to pursue a career in professional sport, even if you don't make it, is never going to be a waste of your time, because you will literally learn so much about yourself, about other people, about what it takes to kind of commit to something. And those life skills you won't necessarily learn at 18 when you're going to university and you're spending your whole time at Freshers Week. And like, again, I say it with coaching clients, is if you want to make something big happen in your life, that there's nothing to say you can't step into that new way of being. And then if it doesn't work out or you don't like it, you can always step back. And I think the same goes with education and school and university and all these things, that they'll always be there. Like, that degree is not going anywhere. And it doesn't, when you get to the age of 30, 40, no one's going to sort of see you and go, oh, you didn't go to university at 18, you went at 24. That just conversation doesn't happen. But I think when you're in it, and it's such a big, huge life decision, it can really feel like it's like just black or white. And I think there's a million shades of gray between those two decisions.
I completely agree. Let's talk about the career of a professional sports player. It always surprises me when I'm sitting down with parents or young people and they're talking about that career journey of a professional player, and they say, I might not make it. But when I'm working with other students and looking at other career paths, we never talk about making it or not making it. We talk about the journey of. And when I'm thinking about sports and we're talking about making it, what does that really mean to a professional sports player? And are we are we making it so big that it's almost impossible to achieve? Or should we start looking at it in little milestones of that professional career? So, when you think back to your career as a sports player, how did you define making it that made it worth the effort?
That's such a lovely question. And I think, if I'm honest, when I was in it, when I was at school, I thought, as long as I get signed on an academy contract, then I'll have made it. And then I got my academy contract, and I was like, and then when I get a first team contract, I'll have made it. And then when I was in the first team, I was like, well, now I need to play in the Premiership. And then once you play that game, then it's like, oh, now I need to play all the time. and then it's England. So, and I think that kind of way of thinking is replicated for most people in their life, is when I get that job, everything will be okay. When I get in that relationship, or I get the car or the family or the house, whatever it is we push our happiness and our contentment, that we kick the can down the road. And then when we get to the can, we change the goalposts. And if we're living like that, we're never going to be happy or content with what we've got. And I like to sort of say, like, stop trying to put yourself over there and realize that you're stood right here, right now. And how can you enjoy the process today of becoming a professional sports person, or getting into university, or being at university, or getting the job? Is what am I learning today about myself and about others that I can sort of take away and makes the whole journey worthwhile, regardless of what the outcome ends up being.
Exactly. And my heart really goes out to sports players, because again, if I were talking to any other professional in any other occupation, they wouldn't be judged on their success because they didn't go from entry level to CEO in less than 2-3 years. They would be celebrated for having, taken on the role and then encouraged to look for other roles. Whereas with sports, and when I'm talking with students, it's almost like, I won't make it. My parents won't allow me to do this. And I wonder if we're putting too much pressure on the making it part, instead of on looking at it as an occupation, just like any other occupation. So if you can, help me through the different pay entry ways for a student to understand that it's professional sport, but it's also a career, it's an occupation. So where on that journey does a student start earning an income from their sport?
Yeah, so for example, I obviously use rugby as an example. If you get a contract from out of school with the academy at any of the Premiership clubs, you'll be paid straight away a salary. You'll tend to then start to, as you kind of go through the ranks, your salary obviously increases, and you get things like match bonuses and win bonuses for when you're actually involved in the match day team. But then, like you said, like, that's being in the Premiership team, like, that's the gold standard. But there's also the Championship, which is the league below, and players playing in the Championship get paid well as well. And there's like you said, there's a spectrum. You don't have to just be an international rugby player or football or American NFL player to have made it. Like you said,
I see those as promotions, like you would see in any other occupation. You get a promotion, and then you step up a level, and if you're not happy, you would move on either to a different department, a different company, or even change profession. And those people are not judged on their success. And that's where I really want to start unwrapping it for young people and for parents to start looking at this career as any other career. It's not your forever. It's where you want to begin. And then you get to decide whether you stay or whether you leave, either by choice or sometimes by force. So let's talk about your cover page on LinkedIn. I love it. The end of your sporting career isn't game over. It's halftime. Tell us more about what that means and why you've posted that.
Yeah. So when I started coaching, I wasn't sure whether I was going to go down helping other business owners like myself, or helping sort of athletes and ex-athletes. And then I went to a 10-year reunion for when my team Harlequins won the Premiership, and that was in the summer. And it was the first time I'd seen a lot of that squad in 10 years, and it was so nice to catch up with everyone. But we were having all these conversations, like talking about what people were up to. And for me, there was too many, like, things are good, but there was too many buts. And it made me sad to think that so many people hadn't found something since rugby that kind of lit them up as much as playing rugby did. And for me, that was just sort of a big, like, someone waving in my face, like, hey, you need to help people like this and people like myself, because I found it really hard when I finished playing. And I thought I had to retire for injury at 26. So I'm 32 now, and I would hope to still be playing if I'd stayed injury free. And when I had to kind of deal with that, I literally thought when my rugby career was coming to an end that life would never, ever be exciting ever again. And that there was nothing out there that could ever beat running out onto a pitch to play a game. And thankfully I was so wrong. And life's over time, as I kind of dealt with that loss of my sporting career, is like, I absolutely love my life now. And I'm very fortunate to have found something that I love doing. And I believe that there's that thing, whatever it is, for every sports person. And for me, that line, like, the end of your sporting career isn't game over, it's only half time, is just to hopefully light something up in the back of athletes' heads to say, hey, just because my rugby or football or whatever career is over, life's not over, life's just beginning. And kind of what you were alluding to with, like, you might change department or you might change company or profession completely. It's like, if you've played sport at a high level for a long period of time, the skills you've built up will hold you in amazing stead for the rest of your life. You can't unlearn the skills it takes to be a professional athlete, and they're complete gold dust in life. And if you can kind of realize that and channel that and find your next thing that kind of lights you up and gets you excited, then I think the possibilities are massive for athletes.
I couldn't agree with you more. Sam, let's talk about retirement. When I work with young people, and also when I'm working with people that are at their retirement age, it's almost the same perspective of career identity. What you've described is exactly what I hear from people across professions, in that their career, their role almost becomes a part of who they are. And when they're coming to the stage of letting it go, that retirement stage, it's like losing a part of themselves. And that's the part of retirement that we see, or the commonality of retirement that I've seen when I'm speaking with people at different stages of their lives. What would you say to a young person to look at retirement, not as you're saying it's not the game over, but more about, you know what, look at your retirement as that exciting next chapter? What could they do? Because I know that, and you described it, you were so focused on wanting to play rugby and do that sport and be professional and get that contract. But what can they do as they're planning for their career, so that they're not looking at retirement as, I'm not succeeding, I had to retire, but more like, just like everybody else would, when I decide not to do that, either by choice or by force, I'm going to do this, and it will be as exciting as this. What would you suggest they begin doing when they're younger, so that it's not something that they feel lost at when they arrive?
Yeah, I think that identity piece of relating to what you do and not who you are, that I got that completely wrong playing rugby. I was Sam, the rugby player. I wasn't Sam. And I'd become this person who I believed, and in hindsight, it was my protection mechanism to try and fit in and get selected and make a successful career. But by becoming that person, I lost myself. And that was the biggest pain for me when I had to retire, was realizing that I didn't know who I was anymore when I didn't have rugby. And there was a big mental health battle for me around rediscovering myself and realizing who I actually wanted to be in the world. But when you're in a career that is all consuming, is how can you maintain connection to yourself and what makes you tick away from work? And I think if I had my time again, I would be, or when I'm speaking to younger athletes, is having stuff away from sport or from your career that you do, that's just a chance for you to be yourself and not have to put a front up or put a mask on or try and be someone that you're not, is having that time where you can just really connect with yourself. And so when the retirement does come, as you said, you can see it as an opportunity rather than like a part of you's dying. And I think that's very much the experience I had. And I guess for like younger students listening, maybe this might resonate with them. Is I know for a lot of people, like you leave secondary school and you go to university, and for a lot of people it's a chance to kind of be reborn as a different person. You get to go to a new city with people you've never met, and you can but almost stop being the person you felt you needed to be at school, and kind of be rebirthed, I guess, as a more kind of true version of yourself. And you can get to say, this is the kind of music I like, or that these are my hobbies. And I think the same goes whenever you change career, is you can take all the learnings from your last career, all the things you love doing, and then you can also realize the stuff that maybe didn't give you energy and you didn't enjoy. And then when you're trying to find that new career, is pick the ones where you're going to be finding energy and enjoying your work more.
Amazing. Okay, Sam, let's talk about some of the transferable skills that you gained as a professional sports player that you're now using and are flowing through your current role and opening your business and working in coaching and being a CEO and a founder.
I think the biggest thing you learn as an athlete, and you've already touched on this, is that you learn to fail in public. And everything you do is scrutinized, whether it's actually on game day or every day at training. You're having your hydration levels tested, your body fat, how much you're lifting in the gym, how fast you're running, like everything. There's no hiding place as an athlete. And you soon learn to be okay with that. And I think that sets all athletes up massively for the rest of their life, is because failure is never going to be as public as being an athlete. But I guess when you open a business, you have elements of that. You start a business and you're saying to the world, this is what I believe in, this is my product or service, this is what I want to bring to the world. And it's very public if you fail at that, because you're not going to be there in 5 years' time. And I guess I've taken that mindset into everything I do. And I again touched on it at the very beginning, is I'd rather fail trying than not at all. And I think that's what's allowed me to sort of start these businesses up.
So it sounds to me like that initial within Sam, the younger Sam, of I really want to do this, that never left you. That was always there. It's just found a new home right now. And in business, tell us about the two different types of businesses that you have. Very interesting names. So we've got the Changing Room and Wayland's Yard and Oddkin Coffee Roasters. They both definitely have a story. Tell us about the Changing Room, and then tell us about Wayland's and how they're different and why you've chosen these two different pathways.
Yeah, so the Changing Room is my newest business, is my coaching business. And that's where I'm working with athletes and executives as a coach on a one-to-one basis, and working on a manner of things with different people, but a lot of transition work. A lot of it's with people who've been out of the game for 10 plus years and who are now realizing that actually maybe they're not quite where they wanted to be, or life's not exactly how they sort of envisaged. And very much working with people, they're like often their lives are good or they're okay, there's nothing wrong, but they want to be flying, or they want to be doing something super exciting, but they're just not quite sure how to get there. And so that's what I'm doing now. And that has kind of stemmed out of what I did with Wayland's and Oddkin. So Wayland's is a coffee shop. So we have 3 shops, and that was what I worked on when I was injured. So I was rehabbing for a year before I retired. And in that time off, I needed to be busy to keep my mind from going crazy. And so that's, I opened that in 2016. And we've now got 50 employees. And then in one of the lockdowns, we opened up Oddkin, which is the coffee roasters. So we sort of now wholesale our own coffee to our shops, but also to other cafes and roasteries. And I guess over that last 6 years, I've realized that for me, all I want to be doing in business is helping people. And I get such a buzz out of helping our team grow and develop and learn that it then naturally kind of moved me towards the coaching.
Incredible. Sam, as we're coming to the end of our conversation, I want to take you back to some of your top 3 career tips. Number 1 is try everything when you're young. The more you try, the quicker you find out what you don't like to do. Do you find that from your own experience that it was hard to figure out what you didn't like to do because you were so focused on making it work when you chose to do it?
Yeah, I think for me, the first probably 4 years of my rugby career, I didn't think about anything else other than rugby. But then when I guess, felt a bit more comfortable in that role and I was a bit more secure, I guess. That's when I started to look into stuff for my kind of post sport. And I did sort of work experience in the city in London with solicitors and banks and stuff like that. And I said that tip as it taught me that I didn't want to be in corporate. And whilst some people might look at that and say, oh, you wasted 3 months every Wednesday, I would go to these different offices and try things out. Some people might look at that and say, well, that's a waste of time because you're not going to do that. But for me, it was the best use of 3 months because it informed me that corporate wasn't for me, which then just narrowed my focus on where to go from that to that. And then I then started to kind of go down that path.
Okay, let's now just briefly talk about something we don't talk enough about. And in my conversation with sports players from football and hockey, and now with you talking about your experience through rugby, the topic of mental health has come up, but very subtly. It's almost a topic we don't really get into. What should families be prepared for when their children are pursuing that professional career? What are some of the red flags they need to be looking out for in terms of their well-being or the well-being of their children as they're either entering the profession or exiting the profession?
I think when you're kind of in it, there's a lot of, I think there still is a lot of stigma in sport around talking about your mental health. I found in particular when I was playing, we had sports psychologists on the teams, but myself, and I now know from speaking to friends sort of post rugby, that none of us were very honest with them because we kind of felt that there might be a chance that what we said could get back to the coaches and then that could kind of affect selection or how you were viewed as whether it was a weakness. So there's definitely, families can definitely support their kids by just creating a safe space to be able to talk to them about how they're feeling, especially around selection and when it comes to contracts and stuff, because there's a lot of emotions flying around. If you play at the weekend and you don't have a very good game and you get dropped, it's a very tough thing to deal with. And so I think just being there and being a listening ear more than anything, you don't necessarily need to solve it, but just to know that they can talk to you. And then post sport, I think if there's any athletes listening to this, is if you have a friend who's retired in the last 3 to 4, 5, 6 months, just reach out and ask them if they're okay. Go for a coffee with them and speak to them, because when you kind of leave, you're suddenly 1 minute you're in this bubble and you have all this support network, and the next minute it literally feels sometimes like the tap's being switched off or the light's being switched off, and you're suddenly out in the world, and it can be a very lonely place. And so yeah, I think there's and the rugby community is great for it. I had loads of support from my friends, but I think it's just worth mentioning that just that simple question, are you okay? And mean it and be willing to speak to them.
Thank you so much, Sam, for being very open and sharing your journey, talking us through some of the things that we don't ever really hear. And that's the reality of retirement across. I hope that it was as exciting for you to be here with us. Where do you see yourself going in terms of your career? Do you see yourself, a serial entrepreneur and opening up more businesses? Do you see yourself kind of swaying closer to sports players with your coaching? Or is there something new unraveling that you've not really thought about before?
I'm very much now in a place where I want to do stuff that has impact, that helps other people, but that also makes me feel good. I Wayland's was my first business, and I definitely applied the rugby player mentality of get it as big and as good and grow it as fast as I possibly could. And I very soon realized that that wasn't fulfilling me. I think the idea of having a really big business, it did at the beginning, but I think that was fully ego driven. Now I'm very much about how can we make this better, what we have better, but better for our customers and for the team, and provide the team with opportunities to grow and learn. And that was a huge driver of why we started roasting our own coffee, because we had a group of people within the business who were desperate to learn how to roast coffee and develop their careers. And for me, I've stepped back a lot from the day to day in that business. I'm not that so much involved in that now, which has given me the space to do the coaching. So yeah, for that, it's about quality and opportunity and growth for the team. And then for my coaching, this feels, I don't know if this sounds really cheesy, but it feels like I've come home, and it feels like I'm doing what I should be doing. And I said it on LinkedIn recently that I'd never thought I'd get that same buzz as stepping out onto a rugby pitch ever again. But I now have that buzz stepping into a coaching conversation with someone. And I feel very fortunate that people are trusting me with helping them and helping their lives. It's a huge honor to have people who are actually willing to work with me on this stuff. And yeah, I get super excited about it, and I'm just sort of curious to sort of see where this goes.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sam. Thank you for being here and for sharing. And you are changing lives. You're actually helping people as they're crossing their journey into a new journey. And for that, we appreciate you. If you are a young person interested in a career in sport, stop looking at success as that final destination and enjoy every milestone. I see it no different than any other occupation. It's always about where we want to begin and to keep doing it for as long as we can and as long as we're enjoying it. Thank you everybody for watching, and we will see you at our next Let's Talk Careers with Miss V.
It's okay, it takes time. I know everything will be alright. The colors will come back again. And there's highs and there's lows, but don't try hide what you're feeling inside. There's always someone there for you. Take my hand, just know you're not alone. I wanna tell